Welcome to Crosstalk with Charlie Johnston, founder and president of CORAC, a national faith-based activist group. Every episode covers a newsmaker who boldly lives the faith by the prayer of doing. Now, here's Charlie.
Welcome to Crosstalk, a joint project of CORAC and of WSFI Radio in Chicago. You know, over the course of a year, I spend 6 to 8 months on the road. In the course of that, I'm giving talks, meeting with CORAC members, just hanging out. But I meet a ton of priests, nuns, religious, fascinating people on that. One that has really stuck in my mind is Father Avram Brown of Yuba City, California. Yuba City is in the Sacramento Valley, which is at the heart of the fertile Central Valley in California. It is just everywhere you can see, as far as you can see, the orchards of almond trees, walnut trees, prunes, plums, cherries, whatever you want. You'll get it in the Central Valley. It also has to the west the shortest mountain range in the world, Sutter Buttes. Great place. Whenever I am in Yuba City, whenever I'm anywhere near Sacramento, I make it a point to get out to St. Isidore's in Yuba City, where Father Brown is the pastor. And he has, number one of the most fascinating conversion stories you're ever going to hear. And number two, one of the things I love is when I see a pastor that lives solidarity with his parish. The odds are that if you are a member of Father Avram's parish, he's been to breakfast, lunch, or dinner at your house. Nobody lives solid. There may be somebody who do it as well as he does, but nobody does it better. Hey, that's a good title for a song. Anyway, Father Avram, welcome to Crosstalk.
Thank you, Charlie. Great to be here today. It's a lot of fun. And speaking of the farming valley here, we have gorgeous weather here in California. So for any of our listeners who are in wintry or cold conditions, they should come out for a quick visit. It is sunny. It is blue skies. It is springtime weather. So we're definitely enjoying our Northern California climate today.
Well, alas, Father, I will not be in California until the fall sometime. But I am looking very much forward to it. And folks, you should know, if you want to get away from the craziness in LA and San Francisco, a lot of the places you got crazy, you go to Yuba City and you're going to be among friends.
It's true. We have city in the name, but this is rural country. We call ourselves Yuba City, but it's all farmers. We're super glad that St. Isidore is our patron saint, a farmer from Spain 800 years ago. He and his wife, Maria, lived that faithful, prayerful, generous service and concern, love for the poor, love for those in need, and most especially faithfulness in prayer. But as we, look towards that, hold on, I'm getting a call here. I should have muted my other phone. There we go. Now I'm back. That dedication, that prayerfulness, we see that too with our people here. So
beautiful. One of the things that we go through and pray for a good harvest and everything. But in the area that you're in, and of course, to give people an idea, as you say, it's farmland as far as you can see, it's orchards. This is Yuba City. Would not be a good place to get lost if you're drunk at night.
Oh, my word. No, I grew up in this area. I grew up a little north of here. And so I remember the almond blossoms in the springtime when all the trees are just blooming. It almost looks like it's snowing when those white petals start drifting off from the branches and landing on the ground. You have the peach trees, you have the walnut groves. Even our Trappist monks in their monastery just north of us, the Abbey of New Clairvaux, their livelihood for years and years, since they were first founded in the 50s, has been the orchards, has been pruning and harvesting. And speaking of pruning, prunes is one of the other big products in this area. So it's a very, you could say, biblical place to be. Everywhere you look, you have little reminders of the parables, reminders of how our Father, how God is watching over us. He's cultivating us, He's tending us, pruning us, but allowing us to bring forth that bountiful harvest. So a good place for reflecting on what God's up to.
How big is your parish, Father?
We're most of Sutter County. The towns north of us will be, 6,000 people, 11,000 people, some 3,000. But Yuba City itself is somewhere in the neighborhood of 65,000. Most of our folks are farmers, but then we also have folks who commute down to Sacramento, work at the state capitol there. And so we have 5 masses on the weekends. We have about 3,000 folks in the pews every Sunday. So we definitely, are bustling in terms of parishioners. We just Bishop Ray, our auxiliary bishop, just confirmed 140 kids 2 or 3 Saturdays ago. So we were happy with that ample class. But many, many families, many, many children. And so our wealth here at St. Isidore's is families and faithful families. That's where our population is.
Gotcha. One of the things that one of the weirdest things whenever I'm in Yuba City, how long have you been pastor at
This is
St.
9 years, 9 years now. Just before this, I spent 5 years in Gridley, the town to the north, and so got to know the farming culture, got to know the sort of tempo of an agricultural parish at Sacred Heart. But it's been since 2016 that I came here to St. Isidore's.
Happy dog? The first time I ever came out to Yuba City, I met you then, and you've been there ever since. You know, um, I'm wondering on this stuff. With with the with how you interact with your parish, what are some of the key things? I've been there. You do devotions, you do meetings on different things. What are some of the things that you've created to get so many people involved in your parish?
I think a part of it is what it means to be a farmer. We have folks here who know that anything that's worthwhile takes time. Anything that's valuable takes dedication and effort. And a lot of results are going to be subtle and slow. And so I do believe the farming dynamic really contributes to a lot of the extraordinary commitment that our parishioners have. When I got here 9 years ago, it was also a Jubilee year. It was the Jubilee year of Mercy, the one in 2016 that Pope Francis surprised us with out of the blue. And so, in arriving here during that Jubilee year, I swiftly recognized that our parishioners were folks who were willing and ready to give of themselves to be dedicated. And so I extended an invitation within a few weeks of arriving here saying, we've got a good sized parish, we've got a good sized sanctuary. What if we were to remain in prayer here in church 24 hours a day? What if we were to say, we believe in God, we believe in his miracles, and so we're going to respond to his call. We're going to respond to Our Lady of Fatima's call for prayer and for urgent prayer. And we're going to practice this night and day, never relenting in this pleading to God, thanksgiving to God, opening our hearts to him. And our parishioners said yes. That literally means to get people praying 24 hours a day. And part of our template, of course, was to have 2 people minimum praying every hours of the day. And so that means hundreds and hundreds of parishioners. And so because of that eager response. We've been able to have exposition of the Eucharist, the presence of Jesus and the monstrance on the altar, 24 hours a day, since 2016, since the previous Jubilee year. And as you may remember, Charlie, there was this little thing that happened back in 2020. They called it a lockdown. They called it a pandemic. They called it a don't go to church time. But here at St. Isidore's, we said the opposite. During that season, when there was no liturgies, when there was nothing going on, our Bishop Jaime Soto encouraged the pastors throughout the diocese to keep their churches open, to keep the doors unlocked, to create a place where people could come to pray. And so our parishioners, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, made sure that Jesus had people who loved him in his presence. And that transformed our parish as we went through those desolation seasons of desolation. That faithfulness, that consistency, that humble dedication of our parishioners truly opened the floodgates of blessing. And we paired that with the sacrament of reconciliation. During those days, we were holding confessions out on the lawn, out on the grass in front of the parish hall. I got a great tan standing out there for hours and hours every day through the week. When I first arrived here back in 2016, as with many parishes, there was one time per week that confessions were offered. But swiftly upon arrival, I discovered that there was uh, uh, an abundant response to that sacrament. The lines were so long, the hours, those were Thursday evenings, were so long that we added a second day for confessions. We added a third day. We're now up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We're up to 7 times a week now that we offer confessions, and still there is the ample, lengthy lines of so many people turning to God and repentance. And so I think it's that combination of faithfulness in prayer with Eucharistic adoration, and then openness to the mercy of God through the sacrament of confession. That's demonstrated by the parishioners, and I think it's because of that humble awareness that it's God who brings a bountiful harvest. It's been
Okay.
beautiful to see.
Coming up, we're going to talk a little bit about your amazing conversion story. First, I want to note that, a priest cannot talk about what anybody has told him in confessions. But I got to tell you, Father, when I get behind a little old lady to go to confession, and I have to wait 20 minutes until that sweet little old lady is done, it makes me think that maybe the TSA has a point in giving extra screening to all those grandmas. Anyway, coming up, one of the most amazing conversion stories you've ever heard. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Crosstalk. My guest today, Father Avram Brown from St. Isidore's Parish in Yuba City, California. And Father Avram has one of the most amazing conversion stories ever. He was raised by New Age hippies. Tell me how that worked. I mean, it's not the recommended way to raise a priest, but in your case, it worked.
No, it's extraordinary, Charlie, and it is so true. I'm just, every day I'm grateful for the gift of conversion, the gift of the faith. But it's so true that this gift is something that I received from my parents. This story, more than anything, is their story, and we should be interviewing them. Mom and dad are like 82, 83 years old now. But their life, their witness to faith is truly incredible. And so in glancing and, investigating what was the journey that led me to the sacraments, what was the journey that led me to this life of priesthood, it's very much mom and dad's faith. And as my brothers and I can attest, their courage. What mom and dad demonstrated with each step of their journey was a courage a confidence. And I don't know how you concoct that or where that comes from. How does a person gain the grounded assurance that they can take a leap, that they can step forward? That courage, that confidence is what made my parents' lives and my brother's lives and mine amazing. And that would be the secret that I think for anybody could transform their story. I guess what you and I could say at this point is pray for courage, pray for confidence, ask God for the gift of faith, like the blind man in the Gospels. Lord, I believe, help my unbelief, to ask for even more confidence, yes, for even more trust in God.
Well, Father, when we first talked about this, one of the things one would not expect a Catholic priest to rise out of that, and both of your parents converted, I understand. But one of the things that you emphasized to me is that your parents were not set on some ideology, they were seekers. And seekers after truth usually end up finding it, don't they?
That's so true. Mom and dad, and to the present, continue to have this openness, a hunger. Jesus in the Beatitudes says, "Blessed are they who hunger and thirst for righteousness." And I think that truly resonates, that God, in creating a heart that's hungry, in creating a heart that's looking for more, another word we could use for that is desire. Creating, as God creates us with a deep desire to recognize, no, with the things that I have, even if I have stuff in this world, even if I have security, it's not enough. And so to be seeking, to be looking for more, that opens the door to miracles. And that was mom and dad's story, and that was the gift that they gave to us. Mom and dad were raised without Christianity. This was, like you said, just pre-hippie, because they were kids in the 50s. And so mom's family was what you and I could call secular humanist. And so secular means there's nothing except for the material world. Unless you can weigh it, measure it, put it on a scale under a microscope, it does not exist. Only this universe is real. But then humanist is that idea, like, us human beings, we're special, so let's just try to make the world a better place, with our technology, with our psychology, with our medicine. We can help improve, the lot of others. So there's a good, what do you call it? Goodwill there, but it's ultimately, trapped. And then meanwhile, dad's family was Unitarian, which is a fascinating one. Those guys started up, I think, in like the 1800s. And as you can hear from that name, Unitarian, they say, okay, there's a higher power, there's an energy up there, but it's not the Trinity. It's not Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Instead, it's sort of an unknown entity that we can't quite track down. We can't. One of the quips about Unitarianism is, if you found the truth, or if you feel like you've found reality, it means that you're mistaken, because God is ultimately, or any higher energy is ultimately unknowable. And so, as you can imagine, Charlie, that means that two kids were raising up in a deeply dissatisfying home, ultimately.
One of the things, I come from a Southern fundamentalist family. I was the first person ever in my family to become Catholic. Interesting reactions from the larger family. First thing my dad did, he went out and got a Catholic Bible and he read the whole thing. He said, "It's just like ours, except those extra books." And then he felt like reading the church fathers, reading things, he felt like he grew. That my conversion helped him to understand his faith better. Now, in your situation, what was the reaction of your family when you said, "I think I want to become a Catholic"? That had to
No,
be a weird situation.
no, Charlie, I'm so glad you shared that, because your story and your family story is that reminder that it isn't always the same. Sometimes we can be surprised as we take a step of faith, as we move forward with honoring God, responding to God, listening to His word, sometimes that can be a beacon that inspires, that nudges, invites others to take a step forward as well. But in my family story, unfortunately, it's been, I don't want to say the opposite, but it's been a long and slow and very painful encounter of response from others because mom and dad first, as young adults, their journey towards discovery, their journey of seeking started, like you said, in the 60s. Started when, as you can imagine, for the two of them in San Francisco in the 1960s, had a little bit of that thing that they call the hippies, the Birkenstocks that mom and dad went through, were well worn. But they started out with the discovery of Eastern religions. They started out with Buddhism, Zen meditation, that practice of sitting cross-legged, facing a blank white wall, trying to empty your mind of thoughts through meditation. And this is what's so interesting, Charlie, with your description of the response of others. Their families, my grandparents on both sides had no problem with that practice of Zen. For them, it was, aspirational, inspirational, commendable, what a nice thing to be pursuing. And so somehow my extended relatives, mom and dad's siblings, my aunts and uncles, didn't react negatively to that chapter. But as mom and dad, having gotten married in that practice of Buddhism, as a friend invited them to her Sunday service. And what I love about that is that evangelization, sharing the faith with others, can be something as simple as inviting a friend to join you to go to church. But mom and dad went to this Sunday service at a Protestant church, and we're really moved by it. We're really struck by it. It stirred those deeper questions. Wait, is there something more? Is there something that we haven't yet found in the direction that we've gone? And because mom and dad were willing to take steps, because they were willing to press forward, they did, take those extra steps. With my dad in particular, it was great. The pathway that he took, he said, well, this Christianity stuff maybe has something to it. So I'm going to study Christianity. And the way that he launched on that was by enrolling in a class of biblical Greek. He starts studying biblical Greek in order to get to know what this Christianity business is. And what dad describes is he's reading Mark chapter 4 there in the Greek. And it's that incredible story of Jesus with his disciples out in the boat in the middle of the storm. Jesus is sound asleep, which of course is that biblical reminder. Jesus took naps. You should take naps too. Be like Jesus. But the apostles in this storm are terrified. They wake Jesus up. They even, in a sense, accuse him. They say, Master, do you not care that we are perishing? And in their fear, Jesus responds. He speaks to the wind, he speaks to the waves, and immediately there's this extraordinary peace. And then the next verse really struck my dad. Let me see if I can pull the Greek back up. It says, Ephubesan phobon megalon, or megon. The disciples feared a great fear. In other words, they were far more terrified of Jesus and the power that he had revealed than they had ever been of the storm, of the wind and the waves. And dad describes that it was at that moment that he met Jesus, that he discovered Jesus, that he fell in love with the person of Jesus, and his journey just continued forward from there. He got baptized, became a Christian shortly thereafter. Mom also took that step of becoming a Christian, getting baptized. My older brother had already been born, so he was baptized as a little kid. And so what that meant is that when I was born, a little while after that, I was born into a Christian family, into a Protestant family. And so I was raised with that awareness that a father loves us, that God creates us, that He has a plan for our lives, that Jesus wants to be our friend, that God speaks to us with this in the scriptures. That was all a part of the world that I grew up in. But mom and dad's parents, mom and dad's brothers and sisters, were amazingly opposed, almost to the point of disowning mom and dad. It was incredible in contrast to their tolerance or even appreciation of mom and dad converting to Buddhism or Zen meditation, where it's like, oh, this is fine. There's nothing, no problem here. The family and the extended family were adamantly opposed to this collapsing into superstition, this taking on of a repressive worldview, this going backwards. And so, again, it was the courage of mom and dad and the confidence of mom and dad to press forward in the face of opposition that gave to me and my brothers. My younger brother was born a little later. Uh, this recognition that confidence, courage is the vital thing for flourishing, for moving forward in life.
All right, we are going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to continue this discussion about, converts have a lot that they have to deal with. Every conversion story is different, and every conversion story is a miracle. We're going to talk a little bit about that in St. Paul at the Areopagus when we come back. Welcome back to Crosstalk. We're talking today, I'm your host, Charlie Johnston. We're talking with Father Avram Brown from St. Isidore's Parish in Yuba City, California, in the heart of the fertile Central Valley. We've been talking about conversion and what that meant. How did you, Father, when did it first start tickling at you that maybe Catholicism was something serious that you wanted to look at?
Yeah, thankfully, in my story, it was in childhood, because that means it's been able to be a part of my journey for most of my life. And I think what it echoes or what it points to is that when you have that heart that's hungry, when you have that heart that's seeking, God will continue to draw you deeper. He'll continue to draw you forward. For us in this life, we are never meant to be satisfied as God continues to reveal that He can fulfill us, can satisfy us far more than we could ever have imagined, and far more than this world would ever be able to attempt. And so, as a family there in Northern California, in my early years, we ended up going to a number of different Protestant churches. We were sort of, as we moved towns, and then even within the places we were living, we were comfortable with trying out different denominations. And so groups like Assemblies of God or the Episcopalians or ultimately Calvary Chapel were groups that my family spent time with, and then a number of other evangelical churches, great communities, energetic, motivated people. But in that progression, we were still looking for more. There was still something more that we were seeking. And so there was a major plot twist in our story when mom and dad, wanting to live the faith, wanting to practice this openness to God, took a year's basically sabbatical, a year off from dad's job teaching at a community college, to go overseas in missions, to go to Asia. We went over there to spend a year where mom and dad were hoping to share the faith. And while we were there, I was 9 years old. My younger brother was 6. My older brother was already off in college. But while we were there, hoping to bring the faith to others, it turned out that one of the young adults that we were working with was Catholic, and so took us, or we asked to be able to go to her Sunday service, which of course was a Sunday mass. And so there we were, I was by then a 10-year-old kid, my younger brother, mom and dad. There we were at this Catholic liturgy on the far side of the world. And we were just amazed at the faith, the fervor of the community there. We came in before the service started, and everybody was praying energetically. And we didn't, speak the local language. We'd been working through translators. And so now that we know what Catholics do, we can figure, oh, they were praying the rosary before Mass began. And then we experienced that first liturgy. We were able to meet with the priest, Father Joseph, after the liturgy concluded. And since it's Asia, you have that, that little bit of tea as part of the hospitality. And so at one point in that conversation, he looks over at mom and dad and says about me, the 10-year-old Protestant kid. He says, someday he'll grow up to become a priest, which is not something that you're expecting to hear. And to be honest, I don't remember that myself, but I do. My parents did years later, after I had entered seminary and been ordained, they recounted that experience to me. But anyways, that liturgy, and again, think about how just a single service, inviting a friend to come to prayer can have life-changing impact for them. You don't have to be a PhD theologian. You don't have to have all the right answers. Simply extending an invitation can change a person's story forever. But that mass there in Asia planted a seed so that as we returned home at the end of that year and tried to go back to Calvary Chapel, and Calvary Chapel was amazing. They had a whole buffet bar where everybody would bring chocolate chip cookies and brownies and Rice Krispie treats, deviled eggs. I mean, it was a kid's dream come true at the end of church to be able to just have all of these incredible things. So, it was a great place. However, in returning after being away from a year, it just didn't feel like home anymore. It was like they had changed or we had changed or something was different. And so mom and dad said, hey, we had that experience of that mass. What about if we go sit in the back pew of Our Lady of the Snows and just see what's going on? So it began the next step of our journey.
When you said Our Lady of the Snows, it gave me a chill. Our Lady of the Snows Shrine in Belleville, Illinois, is my favorite place in the country to go and pray, and I'll be going there tomorrow morning.
Perfect.
You know,
Perfect.
it is perfect. One of the things that I think about is that all too often, one thing that really struck me, St. Paul at the Areopagus, all the pagans and everything, and they all worship different gods, small g gods. And the first thing that St. Paul did was congratulate them for their ardent faith, and then told them about the one God, the God of all gods. And I think sometimes when we talk about these things, a lot of Christians, they want to berate people for their thing instead of congratulate them for their seeking after what is true. And I think we could really improve it on that. But, for whatever reason, Father, I know my parents always stayed Protestant, but they were very favorable. They were the unusual fundamentalists that were very favorable to Catholics. When my mother died 13 years ago, at her request, she had a rosary wrapped around her hands in her coffin. And some of the relatives, one in particular, was threatening to make a scene. We chased him out and that. But, what do you think is the resistance to that? Why do you get that?
Charlie, that's such a good question because as we dig deeper into the discovery of who God is, what he wants to share with his children, what the Good Shepherd wants to bring to the world, over and over again, we keep discovering God's here to bring peace. He's here to bring love. He's here to bring joy. And somehow we kick back. Somehow we reject that to the point that Jesus ultimately says, "Do you think that I've come to bring peace? No, I've come to bring the sword, this incredible division." And that's exactly what we find, is that there is collisions and hostility that makes no sense in terms of what we're actually dealing with. It reveals that we're a very broken world and that we're not only damaged as human beings, but there's an antagonist, there's an enemy who wants to keep us away from God, keep us separated from God. And so, again, if we're going to permit the hunger in our heart, the longing in our heart to stir us, if we're going to allow it to draw us into something deeper, more beautiful, we do need to be ready. We're going to need that courage to press forward, even when there's friction, even when there's disruption, even when there's opposition. In this next chapter of our family story, as we started to discover Catholicism, sitting there in the back pew of Our Lady of the Snows. We didn't realize that for Catholics, the back pew is prime seating, so we didn't know that we were actually probably taking somebody's seat. But it was actually the first Sunday of Advent that we made that first visit, and one Sunday led to another. And then Father Patrick Lee started meeting with us as a family and guiding us through the faith, showing us the history of the church, what Catholics believe, what the sacraments are, what the Mass is. And so we became more and more delighted by, we became more and more in love with this fullness of the faith. But mom and dad, we had so many friends, all of their friends that they had cultivated through the years were Protestants of one flavor or another. And stunningly, we discovered that nobody was ready to accept this new chapter. While, like I mentioned, we had drifted from denomination to denomination before, and by and large, we were able to keep all of our friends in those transitions. But once we took that plunge, as they say, crossing the River Tiber, mom and dad lost their entire friend circle. So earlier, they had become estranged, and thankfully, with our families, there was a thawing as the years went by, which we're very grateful for. But we lost, mom and dad then lost all of their Protestant friends when we became Catholic. And it was very sad to see this sort of response. So it's a true thing, Charlie, that to follow God, to honor God, frequently will result in a pushback or a resistance. And as we say, the world, the flesh, and the devil, we feel that resistance within us. We feel it with those around us, and then we feel it from the diabolical, this resistance to the blessing of God.
We are talking with Father Avram Brown. I'm Charlie Johnston. You're listening to Crosstalk. We are going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to wrap things up, talk about how to build a strong parish, or for that matter, a strong community anywhere. Tell you a little story about that when we come back. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Crosstalk. I'm Charlie Johnston, your host, with our guest, Father Avram Brown from what is it that I have trouble saying Brown, for crying out loud? Must be age related. From St. Isidore's Parish in Yuba City, California, in the heart of the fertile Central Valley. We're talking a little bit about, the struggles that you go through. A funny thing, my dad became a fundamentalist minister. As you may know, fundamentalists, a lot of times, they have regular jobs, and then somebody runs the I don't know what it's called, parish. I'm just going to say parish because I'm real Catholic now. When their pastor died, the church had some challenges, and they asked my dad to take over as pastor. Well, he contemplated it for the longest time. And I talked to him. I called him. I'm Catholic then. I encouraged him that I thought it was a genuine call. So he took it over, did wonderful, expanded the church again and built it. It was more healthy and vibrant and all that. I was sitting with Dad one day. I said, "Can you imagine that? Good Catholic boy like me recruiting good fundamentalist ministers like you." Um, it's part of the thing is having the grace. I've thought a lot of times, Father, that where we're at, what our church or our denomination is a toolbox. I, of course, believe that the Catholic Church has the fullness of the deposit of faith. But what church we're in does not determine whether we're holy or not. We've got the best tools. And so those who have the best tools will be held to the strictest accounting. We have to reach out beyond that. Now, you've built, as I said, at the beginning of this, you've impressed me with having one of the most active parishes I've seen. I mean, you're just involved in everything. Everybody's involved. If Father Abram says we're going to do this, everybody wants to get together. There's a solidarity there between that. And yes, 24-hour devotion played a role. But what other things? I'm thinking about how do you build that sort of relationship? I've got an idea, but I want to hear what your idea is. From watching you, by the way.
I think that's such a great question because it is so easy as human beings, we want to do the right thing, we want to help out, we want to serve God. And so it's so easy to put a huge amount of effort into coming up with, developing, strategizing, building the biggest plans, and then just pouring ourselves out into them. But there's this incredible risk that it's that thing that we call human effort, that it's an ultimately Tower of Babel, human construction that isn't going to end up in the right place, is not going to be bringing about God's plan. And so I think to go back and double check, to go back and verify, does this come from God? That humility and that seeking first of God's call, of His word, I think resonates so much with the accounts that we find in the scriptures. Just a week or two ago, I don't know when we're airing this program, but just recently we celebrated the Annunciation, March 25th. And of course, that gives to us the roadmap of how to go forward. The Blessed Mother says, "Behold, I am the handmaid of the Lord. Let it be done unto me according to thy word." And so this incredible openness to the will of God, to the providence of God, to the plan of God. And where does that openness, and we're going to jump back to that word we were looking at earlier, confidence. Where does that confidence, where does that trust come from? And for me, in my experience, it very much does come from that journey in childhood, that God led my family, that God guided mom and dad into the faith, into the church, into the sacraments. I was 11 years old by the time that we were brought into the church through confirmation, First Communion. And one of the crazy things about my story coming into priesthood is that I cannot delineate a moment, sort of a difference in the journey of becoming Catholic as a 9, 10, 11-year-old and the journey of discovering priesthood. In other words, I don't have a remembrance of a time in my Catholic life of being Catholic and not knowing, not having the sense of a call to holy orders, to priesthood. And so that's very much a gift. That's very much something provided by God. I didn't have to go out and hunt for it. Nothing against hunters, of course. But it wasn't something that I had to go and track down. Instead, it was gifted. And so to have a deep sense and hopefully a lived experience of God's providence in your life, that He's caring for you, that your Father loves you, that He has a plan for you, that He's very wise, that He's very good. And then in that, profound sense of providence and that deep sense of trust in the vision of God, that we can count on him, that we can rely on him, that allows us to be open. What's that word? Dispose. I forget the word. Disposed to the grace of God, and then He can nudge us. He can guide us. God's not dealing with, God willing, in that sense, these sort of resistant, hard-headed, or as they said in the readings today, stiff-necked population. Instead, he finds folks who are docile, who are receptive, who can be nudged, like Elijah on the mountaintop, where it's the still, soft whisper that Elijah hears, that God can just whisper and will respond, like the Blessed Mother, that openness to the Word of God, that docility, that's the word I was looking for earlier. That docility allows God to work wonders.
Okay, now let's go through this. First of all, with Father Abraham, table fellowship is very important. It's very important in the gospel. Father Abraham spends time with his parishioners. I think something that's key is that he knows them. He knows his parishioners. And if it's important to one of his parishioners, it's important to him. They feel that. They know that he cares. And if they come up with some stupid idea or fear, he's going to listen and all that. So it's just natural. People want to be known. They don't want generics. They want you to know them. And so it's just natural. He's one of the most, Father Abraham is a fully Orthodox priest, but everybody knows he cares for them. And he proves it by when they come up with something, he's Johnny on the spot to talk to them about it, whatever it is. So it's just natural that when he leads on religious matters, we're going to do this. I remember the last time I was out, we had out in the garden there, and they're in that circle in front of the church. We had some sort of a devotion. I think it was the rosary. I don't remember what, but everybody comes. And that people will accept, they will embrace, they will give thanks for leadership when the leader is somebody who they can feel viscerally cares about them. I think that's the critical thing. And Father Avram is one of my favorite priests in the country. And let me tell you, I know a lot of priests.
Charlie, I'm so happy, so thankful to hear your insight, that recognition of what's stirring here at St. Isidore's, because since I'm immersed in it, since I'm in the setting itself, it's very helpful to have that outside vantage point of what's the secret sauce. What is that thing that's making a difference here at St. Isidore's? And one of our sort of, let's call it, core principles here is that recognition of every human being created in the image and likeness of God is a mirror of the Father. As Mother Teresa said when she was asked, why is it that you're picking these people up out of the gutter? Why are you spending so much time with these very, for us, repulsive people? And what she said is, I see Jesus. I see Jesus in the distressing disguise of the poor. And so that ability to recognize that every person in front of you, and here, especially parishioners, but every person in front of you is that revelation of the love of God, of the presence of God here and now, today in your life. And so in being present to somebody and responding to somebody and listening to somebody, and like you said, sometimes those ideas can be, off the wall, but you're still present and you still respond, and you still listen. And in seeing Jesus in each person, that allows the Holy Spirit to stir in the family, in the community, in this place that God is bringing together. And so in trusting that God is bringing together in his providence those fellow travelers on the journey, that allows you to respond with openness, with wholeheartedness, knowing that God will guide the work that he's bringing about.
Indeed. And when you do that, they respond to you with openness and with wholeheartedness. And you become truly a parish family. I've been talking today with Father Avram Brown from St. Isidore's in Yuba City, California, the heart of the Central Valley. Father Avram, I thank you for joining us. We have run out of time. So, do you have any last words, Father?
I just really enjoyed the chance to be with you today. You have a great team putting this together. And since we're in 2025 Jubilee year, what an incredible thing to realize God is faithful. He's been guiding us through the seasons of deliverance, these new chapters of freedom. This year, this Jubilee year is called the year of hope. So to open our hearts to that deliverance, that blessing, that deep hope that the Holy Spirit brings to us, this is a great time to be Catholic and a great time to say yes to the work of God.
Father Avram Brown, for myself, thank you for listening to Crosstalk. We'll see you next time.
You've been listening to Crosstalk with Charlie Johnston. Visit the CORAC website at corac.co, not .com, but .co.